Welcome back to From Days to Years. This is part two of the episode with my friend Jennifer, and she's telling you her journey, her path with breast cancer. And in this series, it's called If I Tell You My Story. So we're going to go back with Jennifer.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome back.
So where we left off, you were telling us about you were just beginning your chemotherapy. You found out 14 markers of the lymph nodes. No,
Lymph nodes. There are 14 lymph nodes and 6 is a positive.
Yeah,
Yes,
three is the
Benchmark.
is the benchmark. So let's talk about your experience with chemo. How long did you have to go through that?
Right. So when I'd had the double mastectomy, and then a couple of weeks later, maybe 10 days or so, we got the pathology back. And that's when I knew that we would have to have well, it was kind of all of us would have to have chemo. So, I went through the healing process for about a month. And during that time, I also started physical therapy, but because y'all, because of COVID, it was virtual. So,
What?
I can't. I just can't. No. What is it? No.
Yeah. I had all these, I had heard wonderful stories of this place called Turning Point that is physical therapy just for breast cancer patients. And it is a beautiful place full of compassionate and wonderful people. But when I say I don't know if I've ever been more uncomfortable. I had really gotten used to like taking my shirt off in front of perfect strangers, because every single doctor's appointment I had, I was derobing and people were touching me, for like every day someone was poking me with a needle and telling me to take my shirt off, which goes against everything that I was raised to do. And then this was even worse. So beautiful, wonderful physical therapist. And we are on my computer and I have to take my shirt off.
You're starring in your own private film?
I was going to say, I hope the privacy laws are in place and you're not recording.
Oh, no. Like I was over that too, because all of the plastic surgeons take before photos. And I was used to going into a room with a camera and a woman and standing there and doing, it was like I was getting ready to be booked into, like
just booking your boobs.
I want to go look at my boobs. So anyway, so doing that was not fun, but it was wonderful. And they would monitor your healing, to make they're looking at infection, they're looking at your scars. Like it was really great. And then they go ahead and start helping you with your range of motion, because everything just locks up. You're afraid to move. You don't want to move. You just want to like this, and so I went through that. And then about 4 weeks after the surgery is when they wanted to start chemo. So I went in for another surgery to have a port placed, which is basically, chemo is very strong. And if you let people put it in your veins, it's going to kill your veins. So we had a port placed, under the skin. And then the very next day I started chemo. The regimen that I had was basically 6 months of chemo. So I had 4 doses of what most people call the red devil every other week. And then I had 12 doses of another one called Taxol, which, once again, I guess I'm in the infusion center for like 5 hours or so, once a week, and no one can come with you, so I used a lot of that time to kind of like, I had like a little, I didn't want to create a caring bridge, because I felt like that was for sick people and I wasn't sick. So
what is a caring bridge? What is that?
A caring bridge site is basically, a way to post updates, right? And a lot of people use Caring Bridge as a way to, raise money, to help pay for medical bills. And in my mind, I had followed a lot of Caring Bridge sites over the years. And I didn't want to be one of those people, like I didn't want to be a sick person with a brain tumor that, like whose mommy was posting updates. Like, I mean, those broke my heart and I didn't want to be one of those. But also because we were so secluded, I couldn't update people. I didn't see anybody. I
Mm.
never saw anybody, you know? And so, in an effort to keep people informed, I created an account on a different site called Post Hope, which sounded a little less sickly to me.
Yeah.
They're all the same. It's just, me in my head. But I would use that time to update, when I would post an update and I would, take a selfie with my mask on and my, s- you know, red medicine coming in my body or whatever. And so, at least every week I would update that because what else am I going to do for 5 hours? I'm going to, almost fall asleep because of the Benadryl or, whatever. So yeah, so I had 6 months of that and it was, isolating. It was miserable because I was bald and you know, I mean, this is
So you
two
did
and a half
lose all your hair.
this
Yeah.
is 2.5 years of hair growth. And I mean, I like hair. I like having hair. The wigs were really fun though. Um,
You had some really cool ones.
I had some cool wigs.
You had some cool ones.
Did
I
your
really
hair
had one.
there's the old myth that says your hair grows back even more beautiful than before. Did you find that?
So these curls are new. I had
Mm.
6 straight hair. It's the same color and pretty much texture. And I mean, I had a lot of hair. You just couldn't tell because it was so straight. But now it has like natural curl, which is just so bizarre.
That's wild.
But
Yeah.
it's fun. The only thing it wasn't fun when it was like super, super short because I felt I don't know why. And no offense to anybody that has like short curly hair, but for me, I wanted my hair, I wanted my straight hair. And I felt like I would feel more comfortable, in my own skin if it was my hair, but it wasn't. It was this short curly hair that reminded me of like my great grandma.
Yeah, like you just got back from the salon and you had a set.
The little tiny
And
perm
I hated
rods.
it.
You see, but they're like all orange or blue.
I hated it so bad. Like, and I was like, would it be weird if I wore a wig, even though I have hair now, So, but I didn't.
This is a wig. Nothing wrong with
No,
baby.
but
Yeah.
like I should have. But then again, once, we were off camera, we were talking about hot flashes. Um, and if you if you have a hot flash in a wig,
Oh.
there is almost no way to recover from that. So the chemo caused,
Oh my gosh.
menopause symptoms. So, hot flashes and then once we ended the chemo, we did radiation. So I had 25 rounds of radiation. And then after that, I started hormone therapy, which because my cancer fed off of hormones,
Mm.
and in an effort to stop it from coming back, I was on a medicine called tamoxifen, which also causes hot flashes. So, but what I want to say about the chemo and the isolation and the pandemic and ordering food online and all of that, like I can't even tell you how long it was before I set foot inside somewhere that wasn't a hospital, that wasn't my house. It was either doctor's appointment or my house, and that was it.
Well, also you were worried because you're you're comorbidity now, right? Because you're at risk for COVID and other
Well, and
diseases.
that was the scary thing too, right? Was that like I didn't want to beat cancer and then die of COVID.
Yep.
And, and that was an excuse that we had to tell family members, that refused to quarantine and wanted to come to our house, and we're not
So scary.
understanding that could kill somebody,
Yep.
me. Um, and so, we could not have done it without my mother,
Yeah.
who quarantined as well.
Yeah.
So she's from Alabama and she would quarantine the whole time she was at home, really alone, right? Like living all alone.
Mhm.
And then she would come to our house so that she could be with us and help me.
Wow.
I was never alone because I always had my kids and I always had my husband. I was never alone. And I'm going to cry and I'm going to be proud of it because I was never alone. I had people like Angie, and
Aw.
Angie came and put scripture in my yard, you know,
Aw.
and strangers who drove by my house were praying over me because they saw that. And I spoke to people after the fact, when I was allowed to be outside and talk to other humans,
Yeah.
and it was like, we were praying for you. We didn't know why, but we
Mm.
knew something was going on and that we needed, and they would cut through our street to get to their church and they would pray over us. And, and Angie mentioned, like I am on the worship team at our church, and after surgery and during chemo, at least 2 times, our choir would come and serenade me outside my window,
That's amazing.
and just sing, beautiful, uplifting worship songs and that just ministered to us, and it was part of like that healing process and a big part of knowing you're not alone, and my church also does to this day. I still get cards. Yesterday I got 2 prayergrams, and it sounds so old school and like old Southern Baptist. But let me tell you, like when you're going through something and you get mail, like snail mail from people handwritten, from people that and like 97-year-olds you don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just special. I mean, it means something, and that's
Yeah.
kind of, not to be all preachy, but like that's what the body of Christ is for, is like to do that, and to be there for people who really, 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 really need it. And I don't know mentally how people can do it otherwise. So that was kind of the
So-
first leg of this journey, and there's actually more. So, we went for 2 years on tamoxifen until this past spring I was sitting at a soccer game watching my daughter, and radiation, I like to call it the gift that keeps on giving, because really
Sorry.
tightens up your skin and it can affect
Whoa.
your lungs. And I mean, I continued to burn for 2 weeks after I was done.
That's the other thing. I remember when we text back and forth, you're talking about the burning.
Oh, the burning.
I remember
Yeah.
you telling me about that. Can you talk a little bit more about the burning?
Yeah. So I don't know that there's anything you can do to prevent the burning, right? So I'm really big on researching things, and I'm on all kinds of groups and Facebook groups, and I have notes on my phone, and I had tips for chemo and ways to prevent. Let me tell you, like, I did not experience a fraction of the side effects that most people do on chemo.
And you did some homeopathic things too. Like your neighbors would bring you like different homeopathic things to try. I remember that too. Did that
Yeah,
help with
that's
the
true.
burning?
I don't, not with the burning. No, nobody gave me nothing for that. So the only thing that the radiologist recommended was they gave me like a business card to some like emu farm, and to get like emu lotion or
Emu.
Okay.
yes,
Wow.
I
That's
know.
new. I've never heard of that.
I was really hoping for something, and I feel like I asked so many people. I feel like I asked my plastic surgeon. I feel like I asked, what can I do? What can I do? Can I, I went ahead of and was like slathering like bio oil or whatever just to prepare my skin, for this radiation. And I guess in the end, maybe it's nothing I could have done because it just burned, and the radiologist, it was funny because when I met with her for the first time, she said, oh, you went through chemo. Like, this is the easy part, because some people have a lumpectomy and then they have radiation, right? But they don't have to have chemo. But if you have a lumpectomy, you have to have radiation. So she's like, oh, you've already been through chemo. Like, this is going to be a breeze. Well, it's not a breeze. Um, One, it really zaps your energy
Yeah, I've heard
for a
that.
really long time. Like long after you're done, you're tired. You're just tired. Um, and for 2 solid weeks, my skin continued to burn.
When you say burn, what did it
I would
how,
say it burned like I was holding a hot iron to my neck,
oh wow.
like skin peeling, bubbling, red, the under my arm was black. My skin was black. It was charred and peeling off. It was painful, but it didn't hurt nearly as bad as this. It went through, it shoots through your body and comes out the other side. So still, if you look close enough, you can see kind of like a square all the way around on my back, like where they
Wow.
aimed this beam and it got into like my esophagus. Like I couldn't swallow. It was just inflamed. Like I had to drink this stuff that numbed my throat so that I could drink water.
And do you have an appetite at this point? I hear a lot of women
That
have
was one,
nausea and
yeah, once again, like most of the normal side effects you hear about, I'd never had. Even with chemo, like I didn't have the nausea. I had everything ready for if I did. I took a nausea pill every morning just in case, I had ginger ready, I had all the things ready. The only thing that my side effects are the ones that they tell you you're not going to have. So like with chemo, like when I was 13, I developed tachycardia. So my heart races and it'll go up to 200 beats a minute for no reason at all. I mean, and it doesn't cause pain, it doesn't hurt. I'm not going to die from it. Like it's fine. But during chemo, it wouldn't stop. So whereas normally, like I might have it for like 5 minutes and it'll go away. For some reason, when I was on chemo, it just kind of kept going. And, one episode I called a nurse who was on call with, when anything's going on during chemo, I figure like I need to just call the oncologist, right? And she's like, oh, well, you've had this your whole life. Just wait it out. And if it's still going on in the morning, you should go to the time. I drove myself to the fire station during COVID. And I got thrown in the back of an ambulance and injected with a medicine called adenosine, which stops your heart while you're awake.
Yeah.
In order to restart it. So, like, I had to do that 3 times during.
Is it like experiencing a heart attack? Would you
No,
describe it as
no,
that?
I wouldn't because, like, the tachycardia is not painful, and I feel like a heart attack sometimes hurts, or I don't know when you see it in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
This
do
was
strike
just
women differently though. Women don't, men are the ones that typically have the chest pain.
that's
Women,
true.
we usually feel it in our arm
I was
or
waiting for that pain.
yeah,
I was terrified. I sat up in my bed until 4 o'clock in the morning
that's
because I thought
so
I was going to
scary.
die,
Yeah.
and then it was like, being the Southern lady, I didn't want to wake up our neighborhood and get everybody talking, thinking like I had keeled over because I called 911, and I was like, I'm fine. You know what? I think I should just go to the fire station because I heard they have like a EKG machine
Yeah.
and if I'm having a heart attack, they'll know. So I'm just gonna go and get hooked up.
I don't mean to fuss.
Don't you worry about that. Yeah. So anyway, ridiculous. Um, and because it had been beating so fast for so long, when I did get to the emergency room, they were like in all kinds of panic because apparently when your heart races for a really long time, it starts putting these proteins into your bloodstream that make it look like you're in some crazy distress, even though really I wasn't, you know? And so they admitted me, but then it was kind of fun because, I mean, nobody could come and visit. And I was like, well, they just put me up in this hotel, they're bringing me meals. Like, this is great. Like, and I didn't have a wig. I
Yeah.
had to wear my ball cap because I was embarrassed to be in a baldy.
Oh.
I didn't have clothes. Like, friends had to drop off a duffel bag. Like, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. So I had the weird side effects that everybody's like, oh no, chemo won't, make your heart go bananas. Like, yeah, it did. And I'm still on medicine to this day because of it.
Wow.
But anyway, I don't know how we got back to that, but I'm watching my daughter play soccer.
Yeah.
And because of radiation, I'm thinking like, man, my skin is still so tight over here. Like, man, that part of my clavicle that just was so fried, like it just, man, it's
Does it like feel like scar tissue? Is that what you would
it just
describe it?
skin's really tight, and what it just felt like, hey, that feels like a knot. not in my, once again, I'm sitting here quietly freaking out in my mind, not going to freak out. I'm not freaking out. I don't freak out unless I know I need to freak out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I know that I have a doctor's appointment that next week. So I'm just going to be like, she feels it. And she's like, yeah, it's really tight. Like maybe we should order an ultrasound. Here we
Oh,
go.
Lord. Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, I don't know about every single oncologist in the world, but my oncologist and most of them, they don't do scans. There's not a way to check your body to make sure that the cancer's not back. You just kind of go along until you experience a symptom. And then it is on you. It is on you to report that symptom.
So you don't get like regular checkups every 6 months or anything?
Yeah, every 6 months I go and I get blood work. And you know what that blood work says?
So so you're not getting like mammograms every 6 months
Or ultrasounds or anything.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
did I forget to mention? So once you have a mastectomy, you have nothing to mammogram.
Okay. Oh, yeah, of course. That makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense, but you may not, you may not assume that. And so, and what I didn't mention, because my story is just so up and down and crazy and all over, was that, I had these expanders put in, right? Well, I had a very long time to think about what I wanted to do with my chest. Most people don't, but because my plastic surgeon is so conservative, she put in expanders. Well, then we realized, oh, guess what? You do need chemo and radiation. So you can't have surgery until way after radiation because it really messes up your skin.
Okay.
So, if I was going to do the natural tissue, then I would have had to have waited 6 months after surgery or after radiation was over in order to have that surgery. What I realize now how incredibly invasive those surgeries are. You don't know that when you're just talking about it, right? But once you have a double mastectomy and you have that kind of nerve damage, you don't have feeling, there are so many things that could go wrong with that reconstruction. But you run the risk of all that, micro vascular surgery that they do. It doesn't always work. And so if you have the natural tissue done, one of them could fail. And then you would be stuck with one breast, or they could both fail. Having the experience of the mastectomy, realized I didn't want to subject any other part of my body to that. So then it was like, well, yeah, what are my options? I don't want implants, right?
Yeah.
Well, then I realized, like, well, some people don't do anything. Some people just go flat, And if I had known what I know now, I would have been flat from day one. Day one. My breasts do not define me. They never did.
Right.
We and we had a lot of therapy too, and we had a lot of other things that were going on and I can say this with complete confidence that we had other things going on in our lives that were worse than cancer. And I firmly believe that I made it through so that I could be there when I really needed to help navigate some uncharted, ferociously violent waters. So really the whole cancer thing was, in comparison, was nothing. And I want to be here. I need to be here. Speaking of like doctors who don't, they're kind of in it for themselves, like we have a trampoline. I'm out here playing with my kids. Elena bumps me in the chest and I get an infection.
Oh,
I woke up in the middle of the night with a fever and chills, and I thought, oh God, I did get COVID. I got it. I don't know how I got it. It was an infection caused by the expander being, having trauma. My issue is that the doctor who put in put in that expander said, no, there's no way that that's what caused it. And there's no way that that's not what caused it. Even my
How else do you explain it?
he said, you've had lymph nodes removed. You can't filter it out, right? Like any kind of fluid or any, like you don't have the tools that most people have
Right.
help, with like a trauma to your body. And so it was partly then that I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need this, and I need to be able to play with my kids and I need to be able to live my life. And by golly, when it is safe to do so, I am taking these out and I'm not replacing them with anything. Hey, honey, is it okay with you if I do this? To which his response beautifully, of course, was yes, of course, do what you want to do. Right.
Your support system is amazing. Like your husband loves you. He was by your side as much as he was allowed to be
Right.
through the entire thing. Your mom, your kids, your church
Yeah.
community, your friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though you went through hell and then you had to go through second hell.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's another. Anyway, um, your husband is amazing.
He is amazing.
Just much love to him.
He is. He is amazing. So I have no construction whatsoever. I have a flat chest. I think if I had gone flat from the beginning, I would have the chest of the, like I used to say, like I want a flat chest like my then 7-year-old son. So it doesn't quite look like that because, they had to scoop cancer out. They had to cut into my muscle. I have concave areas. It is not perfect, but it's fine. And I don't care. Like I wear it proud and I will wear a swimsuit that's like, if you had big giant breasts, like I mean, you might look a little hoochie, I can get away with it because I have nothing. So anyway, sitting at soccer, I feel this. I go to the doctor. She feels it.
Yep.
We order the ultrasound. There is I think the technical term was like a conglomerate. So some lymph nodes were in there having a party.
Oh God.
So I got to have the neck biopsy.
The
Oh,
Bipsy.
The biopsy, which
Bipsy.
yes. So I'm in this room about to have this surgical procedure on my neck, and I'm reading the form, and it says that I'm going to have a biopsy. And I'm like, well, I don't know what a biopsy is, but I'm here for a biopsy. You might want to check your spell check or whatever. And they were like, oh my gosh, like, we don't know how many people like have probably signed this form that said they were getting a biopsy.
When you sent me that was the only part I could laugh about. The rest of it I cried. But the Bipsy was hilarious. Because it reminds me of that movie. You remember from oh my gosh, I cannot think of that movie. It was years ago. My Big Greek Wedding.
oh.
You remember? She's like, I had the biopsy. I was like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that movie so much. We literally just watched that like 2 weeks ago.
How many people just like breeze through the forms, like
right.
and just like scroll down and just sign it? That's me.
And not only that, I'm pretty sure that there was something else wrong with it, and I don't remember now, but it might have said that I was a male or something. There was something hugely wrong, and I was like, oh, two things. What the heck is a bipsy? And I may not have like boobies, but I'm a girl.
yeah.
Also don't recommend anyone injecting a needle in your neck to pull anything out of it. Because they basically do just like they did with this. They go in 3 layers basically. So like they take a sample out and then he goes in a little deeper and then he goes in and he basically punctures your jugular and you think you're going to die. It was horrible. It was so bad that the radiologist that did it, who was skiing buddies with my oncologist, like apologized to him for me, like through him, like it was not a good experience. And I was like, it was really, really bad. And a couple of days later, I get the call that my cancer has returned.
We're going to take a short break real quick and we'll be right back.